Today it's time for a professional match of StarCraft 2, and what I've got for you is a top-level game of Protoss versus Protoss. Spawning here in the northwest corner of King's Cove and playing with the red Protoss probes from South Korea, we have none other than Stats. And his opponent playing with the blue Protoss pieces. Actually, look at that. Samwise is back on the Nexus. I thought they fixed that bug recently, but apparently he's back with his opponent from Germany. We're looking inside of the main base of ShoWTimE. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, both of these players are top-tier Protoss players. I mean, as of me making this video, I just had a quick look on Alugalek. Statistically speaking, Mr. Stats over here is the current rank 1 Protoss in the world. It's very, very impressive. I mean, he's been on a fire lately. It's always difficult, though, to pinpoint who exactly is the best in whatever race at the current moment. I mean, names like Classic come to mind, Zest, Neep, Trap, Deer. I mean, even Hero and SOS have looked pretty solid as well recently. It's hard to say who's the current best, but there's no denying that Stats as well as ShoWTimE are amongst the very best in their class. ShoWTimE, as of me making this video, is the rank 15 in the world overall. Not just with the Protoss, but rank 15 overall. And obviously, I mean, what else is there to be said, right? They're both very, very good. Now, what's cool about this, and actually, both players are looking to get a little bit cheeky, I think. Normally, you send out a proxy probe, right? A probe that's going to build a pylon pretty early on, because you want to proxy your second pylon. I think both players are going to go ahead and get a little bit cheeky. We'll have to see what goes down. I mean, there's still that double gateway opener, obviously, and still the cybernetics core for both players as a follow-up. But indeed, the second pylon is being proxied. Anyways, what's cool about both of these players is that they are both very similar in their macro, right? So whenever people ask, like, Loko, I want to learn how to play Protoss, I pretty much always refer to them to either Stats or ShoWTimE. I mean, ShoWTimE's nickname in Germany is literally Die Mauer. It means the wall. He's extremely solid, extremely straightforward with his builds. And, I mean, well, look at the production tab right here, right? Things are looking pretty similar on both sides. So we see Stargates being proxied. Now, ShoWTimE's one is not that far outside of his natural. I mean, this one is obviously still going to arrive with the Oracle a little bit quicker across the map. He's actually looking right now as well to see if there's maybe going to be a proxy on the northern section. But nope. That probe is in bad luck. I mean, there's a lot of proxies going down right now in this matchup. Look at the amount of scouting here as well. If you look at that probe on the minimap, there's a pattern where it's snaking around trying to figure out if there's any aggression here coming out of his opponent whatsoever. But it looks like neither player will really get too much information unless this Protoss probe decides to move up that ramp. Well, he needs to do so very quickly because the Stargate did already finish. Both players trying to save up a little bit of gas, and there we go. The Oracle will be coming up, as well as the one here in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, I like this. Okay, so this is the first deviation. So ShoWTimE is a very, like, he's the quintessential macro player, okay? If you want to play safely, if you want to learn how to play Protoss, just play like ShoWTimE does, okay? He's very straightforward, he's very efficient with his actions, and he does everything in a very conservative manner. Right now, even, he's not putting the proxy all the way across the map, and even though he's technically going ahead and playing a little bit cheeky here, he's still gonna have that shield battery inside of his main base. The Stalkers, though, on a bit of a path. Natural will be coming up here as well. We do see the same for Stats. But look, right here, right? This is what I mean. So these Stalkers, they were keened out perfectly. They were moving across the map a little bit, but they get back in time. Even though he didn't scout that there was a Stargate, they get back in time to still, at the very least, ward away this very first Oracle. There's going to be a second Oracle here as well for Stats. Oracle for ShoWTimE seemed to be on idle for a little bit. He was maybe waiting for the second one to come out as well. But, you know, he's got that shield battery set up, which I really, really like. It's going to make this a much harder base to harass. Even a third Stalker right now coming up. And I think both players actually are not going to be able to get that much done. It kind of comes down right here to these two Oracles, but there's 4 Stalkers waiting in the main base. Maybe they're going to be able to get a probe or 2. And there we go. They get a Revelation as well, but they're not going to be able to get too much done. Couple of probes here on both sides. But all things considered, I think this is certainly not that big of a deal. Now, ShoWTimE did go ahead and produce a Phoenix. Oh, I didn't see it. I was going to say, this is like the only place where they can safely hang out. And, well, obviously, this Phoenix will put a timer on this attack. They're going to be recalled back home. One of them falls, and that is going to be that. All right. So a very straightforward game right here in the earlier part of it, where both players are sort of testing the waters, right? I mean, if they were going up against me, I would have already lost the full mineral line worth, but both of them are just simply testing the waters a little bit, trying to make sure that they are safe. And even now that Phoenix as well for Stats, both players really opening up very, very similarly. Now, this is a game that was recently played as part of Aces ROG, a big tournament that just wrapped up last weekend. Ooh, actually, hold that thought. We do once again have the oracles coming in. They're trying to get something done, but yeah, not a whole lot will happen. One of the phoenixes ends up falling here as well, so definitely an eye for an eye once again. But this is a game that was recently played as part of a premiere event, and right after the game wrapped up, I had about a dozen people reaching out on Twitter and mentioning that if I didn't see this game live, I should really go ahead and cast it on the YouTube channel, because apparently, especially the late game of this match, and yes, we're gonna have some late game Protoss versus Protoss, is absolutely ridiculous. So I'm excited to figure out what it's all about, okay? Now, I do know that the eventual winner of Aces ROG, and this is a game that was played relatively early on into the tournament, so this is not going to be a spoiler for this match, but I know that the eventual winner of the whole thing is actually none other than Stats, who for the very first time, I think in his career, ended up beating Serral in the semifinals, and then he also went on to beat Solar in the grand final. So Stats grabbing that big tournament victory. I mean, he's a top-level player. He's very, very strong. I always enjoy watching him win. He's always smiling. Even when he loses, he's still looking happy. But look at that, right? Shield batteries, man. They're such a pain. I mean, that Oracle's not doing anything right now. Shield battery heals up way faster than it can really get a whole lot done. Now, these 4 Stalkers, they're still praying right there at the Nexus. Look at them. I don't know, man. There's a congregation right there of Stalkers. I don't know what they're discussing, but at the very least, they're keeping the bases safe. All right. One Zealot, though, made its way towards the bottom left-hand corner, so that means the end of the Stargate production. But honestly, though, at this point in the game, you're not really looking to get any additional Stargate units. Both players right now are already transitioning. We see Stats transitioning right now towards the Twilight Council. A couple of additional gateways coming up. But he's got the Forge, he's got the robotic facility. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to even be seeing a quick third base as well here in just a little bit, after he gets a sufficient amount of gateways. The same can really... Oh my god, look at the production tab. Seriously, you can cast so many of the mirror matchups as a commentator in StarCraft 2 just from watching the production tab. Like, look at the production tab. This is what happens when you have 2 top-level players. Even when they're cheesing, right? Even when they're technically playing aggressively, or at least they go for an aggressive build in the early game, they're still playing very, very similarly. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the structures are going to look pretty much the same as well. Although that tap is going to be messed up here in a little bit as the Stargate will fall. Anyways, third Nexus going down there for ShoWTimE, and guess what? On the other side of the map, we see the same right here for Stats. So this is the point where you look at the supply count, okay? You try and figure out who's ahead, judging by the amount of supply. Stats is right now going for already those Archons. Archons are a pretty standard follow-up to Stargate play in general. I mean, obviously, Archons are phenomenal. But sometimes, every once in a while, we see someone transitioning towards mass Phoenixes. And obviously, Archons are very, very good against that kind of style. If you have someone going mass Phoenixes, one of the counters usually is charge slots together with Archons. And charge slots and Archons are obviously great against most things. But usually, you don't really want to go into too heavy of an immortal focus at this point, just because it can be a little bit of a gamble, right? Because if a bunch of Phoenixes show up and you lift up all of those Immortals out of the equation, it's very difficult to get anything done. So going Archons and then those Zealots as well is a really good follow-up. Now, both players, though, are giving each other a lot of respect, right? I mean, it's very possible to go ahead and just play aggressively off of 2 bases. The thing is, King's Cove, and by the way, this map is going to be retired in the very near future with the new ladder season, so I'm pretty sure we're not going to be seeing it that much anymore. This may very well be one of the last games that I'm casting on it. But this map does feature a pretty easy-to-take third base. I mean, high ground advantages in StarCraft 2 are big, so if you manage to get yourself that high ground, obviously you get a lot more vision. It's always difficult to push up a ramp, especially when there might be force fields and those kinds of things. So generally speaking, you want to have that high ground advantage, and it's much easier to defend this third base since it is not going to be on the low ground. So usually, this is a map, I mean, if you give 2 macro players a third base that they can take easily, right? This is a map where they will go ahead and do exactly that. Now, I like this, actually. Stats managed to sneak one cheeky little observer between the cracks, right? This is a relatively common location. Normally, we see it a little bit further over in that direction, but this is something that ShoWTimE has not been checking for. He is a little bit more in the dark and therefore forced to scout with those Phoenixes, those hallucinated Phoenixes instead. Obviously, Phoenixes are still going to go out as well for Stats, hallucinated ones at that. But here we go. Finally, the Warp Prism is finding a little bit of an angle. They're trying to see if they can maybe get like a Stalker kill or 2. Maybe a couple of probes. Obviously, as soon as they start taking base damage, that's when he wants to get out of there. Are there still any... no, there's no more Phoenixes remaining, so that's the real thing. Stats, though, he's had enough right now, right? I mean, he knows that that army, at the very least, inside of the prism is on the other side of the map. Pushing across right here is the smart thing to move, or a smart thing to do, because this immediately means right now that the recall is going to be secured on that prism. You need those 2 immortals at home, and look at that, right? Rather than dealing with the aggression, he's like, okay, I don't have any Phoenixes anymore, I can't make anymore. I'll go ahead and just simply push across the map, force you to recall, and that's one way of forcing you to retreat. Bit of a cheeky move there. Already, though, both players right now going up towards that 4th Nexus as well. So a lot of respect here, right? I mean, it's very easy to overthink your advantage. And really, like, you know how, like, the classic mantra of improving in StarCraft 2 goes as follows, right? When you're ahead, you get more ahead. And I think this is a common mistake that a lot of people make when they first get started in StarCraft 2. A lot of people smell blood in the water and they're like, okay, let's go! I mean, I've got a small little advantage. Let's put all of my eggs in one basket and try and see if I can finish off the game right now. That's a very common mistake for new players. In Protoss versus Protoss especially, there's a lot of potential for comeback mechanics. So usually the way you can secure your advantage rather than finishing off the game early and taking that gamble is just securing more economy, right? If you know you're going to be the better player and you can win in the long run, just simply playing the save approach, right, and going for an additional base is usually the correct move. I mean, in Terran versus Zerg, for example, oftentimes we have big advantages. It's difficult to come back unless you have, like, I don't know, Banelings sitting on creep or maybe like a planetary fortress or something to fall back to. But generally speaking, right, if we see one player getting an advantage there, we see players playing much more aggressively. In Protoss versus Protoss, not so much. And one of those comeback mechanics I was talking about is indeed these big balls. The Purification Novas of course, the Disruptors. Very, very scary to deal with, and we see both players now actually making that transition. Dark Shrine here also coming up for ShoWTimE. Probably gonna be primarily here for some run-bys and maybe a little bit of aggression. Obviously, you can use it later on as well for big warpins, and if you have pretty much all of the money in the world, both players are approaching maxed out right now. You may as well go ahead and get the different kinds of tech that you would like. Now, usually, right, when it comes to Protoss late-game armies, you want to go for the army that costs the most gas, okay? The more gas you spend on an army, the better. And look at the amount of glowy boys are already in both of these forces. That is a stupid amount of Archons. 7 Archons versus 10 Archons. Oh. Comes down to the angle as well, though. Those Disruptors can 100% turn the tide of battle very, very quickly. They don't kill an Archon in one hit, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But here we go. Nice little bit of splitting. It's got to soften up a couple of those Archons, but obviously this mostly is just opening up the opportunity right now for counterattacks, as both players are sending in the Zealots, trying to posture here in the center of the map, but they know they're not very likely to get a whole lot done. I love this so much. I mean, I'm casting this with a big smile. I don't know if you can hear, but I love this so much. They're posturing in the center of the map. I would just go, okay? I would just go and try and fight, and it doesn't work, right? Because you just get your whole army blown up. So neither player really wants to engage. They're kind of testing the waters, trying to see if one of them is going to overextend or maybe commit a little bit too much. But most of the damage right now is done in counterattacks, and, you know, forcing these two players to stay close in army obviously helps as well. Now, if you commit to too many counterattacks, obviously you're in big trouble as well. This is a lot of resources that ShoWTimE is committing to this. The same can really be said, though, for stats. Finally, he's now also slicing away at the pylon that is powering that Stargate. And right, of course, when the Zealots go in, the main army, at the very least, is going to have to stay relatively close to home. Okay, so this, I think, should be cleaned up here pretty easily. I'm curious about this counterattack. Okay, now, the majority of the Protoss army here for stats is also back home again. He's going to be able to clean up those Dark Templar with ease, even putting a Revelation there on the DTs, just in case the amount of detection here drops. All right, now I like this. Stats on the back of this, he has been transitioning, okay? So he's got himself a double cybernetic score. He's got himself 2 upgrades right now going up for those Stargates. He already has a fleet beacon. He's going for the mothership, and he's right now producing 3 carriers. Okay, very interesting. I haven't seen a lot of late-game Protoss versus Protoss in general. I know that carriers can be good. I personally am more of a fan of the Tempest. I think Tempests usually seem a little bit better. Now, I don't want to second-guess stats here. I mean, he's far better at playing Protoss than I am, so let's just see how this one is going to play out. But usually I find carriers to be a little bit difficult to control and a little bit difficult to... I mean, right now, right? If ShoWTimE goes for a bunch of Tempests and we see stats sitting on a bunch of carriers, can't the Tempest just pick off the carriers from a distance? We do see now actually a couple of Stargates coming up here as well for ShoWTimE. He does still have this one right over here, so yeah, he's also gonna go for the fleet beacon himself, already building up that mothership as well. So it's gonna be full. It's gonna be full late game Protoss. I love this. I love this. Okay, let's see how this is gonna play out. I have no idea. I think it mostly comes down to the engagements and the amount of damage you can do with the counterattacks, right? So both players are committing a lot of resources and a lot of supply as well to setting up these counterattacks, right? To try and see if they can get something done. Since they have the disposable income right now to warp in about 20 or so supply worth of army here for counterattacks anyways, it's all good. Both of them are right now also building up that base right over here in the center, so that's going to be the 5th mining expansion. But here we go. Now, ShoWTimE at this point, yeah, he's going to see that cloak nexus and immediately backs up. He also actually saw a couple of carriers here, and he immediately also does start up the Tempest production. Okay, I like this. I like this a lot. So it's going to be, dude, okay, so we're going to have a mothership. Let me get this straight, right? We have a lot of these glowy boys, a lot of these Archons. We have a ton of Disruptors as well. And then it's going to be Tempest for ShoWTimE, but carriers right here for stats. I do like the fact, though, that we have double upgrades for stats. I mean, these carriers, once they're maxed out, are ridiculously strong. Obviously, the interceptors all benefit from those upgrades as well. So that means, you know, every single one of those upgrades is so much more valuable. Only a single upgrade right now coming up here for the player in blue. Disruptors trying to throw forward their Purification Novas. Once again, both players, mostly just posturing, right? Trying to see if one of them is going to overextend. If one of them did, they would certainly jump on the opportunity. That's so dumb. That's 2 Disruptors hitting each other. One of the Purification Novas, though, went off a little bit sooner. Oh. Nicely done there, though. ShoWTimE's certainly getting the favorable trades. He's got to be careful. The Phoenixes actually still remain as well. They're going to be quite helpful here when it comes to cleaning up these interceptors. 6 Nexus right now being acquired here by stats. So I think he is assuming that he's certainly not going to go down anytime soon. There's this weird moment as well where you kind of want to get rid of your probe supply. I mean, we have 70 supply worth right now of probes for stats. That's quite a lot. 65 only for stats, or for ShoWTimE rather, who's now also going to show his big mothership. It's going to be pretty good actually as a defensive measure as well. All right. Stalker blinks away just barely before he gets picked off by that Disruptor. All right. So a ton of additional gateways as well. So let's go ahead and have a look at these army supplies right now, right? So we have 3 Tempest. I hope that ShoWTimE continues producing Tempest. I mean, he's maxed out right now. I think he kind of needs to. Because you're not going to win a maxed out... Dude, there's no way, right? He's got a whole bunch of supply caught up right now in Archons. And yeah, Archons are pretty good against carriers, obviously. Their interceptors can be picked off. But this is going to be a very strong army. A very, very scary Protoss army. Okay, I think that's why he's counterattacking right here. He's opening up... Yeah, look at that. So he's purposefully losing some of his supply right here to replace that supply with additional Tempests. I think that's the correct call. Even though he's giving away those Archons, right? Very valuable. I kind of feel like you need to even donate the Immortal right now. You don't need the Immortal anymore. Obviously, though, you need to be careful. This is still a group of units that takes a very long time to produce. Once again, a counterattack right here with... What is this? An Archon counterattack? Oh, I love it. That's so strange, because usually these are the kind of units that you want to wait for. There's no way, right? There you go. They're actually very scary. Like, they clean up that Nexus real quick. This is when you properly see the amount of damage that an Archon deals. And it's all splash as well. So they're actually surprisingly decent against interceptors, but you want to be careful. Phoenix is not really something you want to have anymore at this point in the game either. There we go. And this is what I love, right? So, most of the time, we see Tempest being used as an air-to-ground tool. However, their range is significantly longer in air-to-air. So look at the range right here. They can pretty much shoot a whole screen away. Still though. I mean, these carriers, they managed to close the distance. They're going to be able to go after the base right here in the center. In the meantime, we have the Archons going in for the counterattack. They don't really care too much about those photon cannons. Even though, on paper, I think Tempest should be able to pick up all of those carriers with ease, the carriers take a very long time to clean up, and during that time frame, we see Stats now picking up 2 of these Nexi. That's a big deal. There's not really that much mining anymore. The Archons on the other side of the map are also picked up, and ShoWTimE is actually dropping in supply right now, once again, adding on more and more of those Tempests. Okay, there's a big recall. I was gonna say, I think you need to get out of there. So he just cleaned up 2 bases, right? He just cleaned up 2 bases, and he basically knocked ShoWTimE's economy back to the Stone Age. In the meantime, though, on his side of the map, he's got himself all of those bases still mining. Once again, trying to re-secure that 6th base here as well. He's even gonna max out right here on upgrades in just a little bit. I just wonder if you want to stick around with this many carriers. Like, that's what I'm mostly curious about here. We'll see what it's gonna look like in the late game. And once these armies inevitably clash. I think you kind of want to add on additional Tempest here yourself. Look at the range, right? They deal so much damage. They deal so much damage. I feel like in the long run, these Tempests are gonna provide more value because they can just, you know, they can. I guess it's not stutter stepping, right? Stutter stepping is what we do with Marines when they activate Stimpack and they close the distance and shoot and fire at the same time. But you can kind of do the what do you call it? Stutter flying. I'm open to suggestions. Let me know what we should call that in the comment section down below. But at the very least, you can hit and run with these. No, you don't run either. You hit and fly. You hit and fly with the Tempests. You try and hit them and then back off immediately. And that's going to provide a ton of value when it comes to dealing with that mothership, but then also the carrier. Still though, Stats army, I mean, if he manages to pin this army back right and push them against the wall, he's going to be in a phenomenal spot. Because in a straight up engagement, I think these Tempests, they're not going to win against the carriers. It's just that they probably will never... Look at that! They're one-shotting carriers! They're one-shotting carriers! How often have you seen that? They're going after the mothership right now. That one's dead. Still though, these carriers do provide a lot of zoning, and that right now opens up the opportunity once again for this base in the center of the map to be in some trouble. Economy right here, definitely in favor of stats. But, oh my god, the amount of damage here is insane. I don't know if you want to go with Stalkers necessarily either. There's still Disruptors on the ground. ShoWTimE leaving those very far back. And just trying to get maximum value right now out of his Tempests. Stalkers, though, forced to blink back. Oh my god. Tempest one-shotting a carrier is insane. How many does he have? He's got 9 right now. Is that the magic number? No, he's just adding on more. Actually, no. Never mind. Okay, so we see Stats making the switch. Stats is now also gonna go for Mass Tempest. ShoWTimE currently maxed out. That cloaking, obviously, not to be underestimated there. Very annoying to deal with. The Tempest continuously dealing damage there to those air units. And then the Disruptors coming in from the back. We still have all of those Archons in the front as well, dealing a tremendous amount of damage. And those are the ones that are zoning away all of those Stalkers. So technically speaking, I think the Stalkers were meant right there to kill all of those Tempests. But they never really managed to get underneath because of all of those Disruptors and all of those Archons. I love this. So sick. All right. And even though our player from South Korea was significantly ahead just a little while ago, right now, though, he's up in a bit of a weird spot. Now, he still has a lot of money. He's still mining more than his opponent. He still has a lot more probes as well, so that's very, very good. He doesn't really have the Tempest numbers yet. All right, there we have the big Time Warp. Time Warp now, of course, reduces attack speed as well. Oh my god, look at the Tempest. Look at the Tempest. Tempest kind of, like in Tempest versus Tempest battles, it feels kind of like Phoenix versus Phoenixes. You know what I mean? Like the one with more will probably win. Oh! Pff. Those Disruptor hits almost connecting there with all of the Stalkers. One of the Disruptors killing a whole bunch of Zealots, but also almost killing a couple of those Archons. Yeah, look at this. So Stats right now has the issue as well of dealing with that Mothership, right? Like, the units are continuously cloaked. Okay, there we go. Mothership does go down. But the actual trouble right now is the Tempest backbone, right? ShoWTimE has got a very scary army, and whenever those Tempests shoot, they get a kill. And they shoot continuously. Oh, once again. The Archons there do get connected by those Disruptors, and it looks like Stats is going to be able to force this army to go back, at the very least for the time being. So, I love the fact that he decided to go for carriers there. I don't think we see carriers enough in top-level StarCraft, and with the upcoming patch, I think we're gonna see them a little bit more. But I don't know if you want to commit for them for too long, right? Maybe he thought that ShoWTimE wasn't gonna switch to Stargate whatsoever, and I think in a straight-up engagement, those carriers would have been phenomenal. But it's just that these Tempests are just continuously hit and running, right? Like they're continuously moving forward, picking up a target, and then they back up once again, and they're basically uncontested. Since the Stalkers can't really blink underneath, they deal so much damage. The cost efficiency right here of those Tempests is insane. Yeah, look at that. This is exactly what I mean, right? So we have over 10,000 resources in favor of the German player. I mean, cue German efficiency joke right here. No, seriously, he's been doing an excellent job. Just going for that really conservative army. I'm actually surprised he decides to back up here. This is the most ShoWTimE-esque thing to do ever, okay? He's like, you know what? I know you don't have an army anymore. I know you have no economy, but let me just back up and regroup for a little bit, okay? When you're ahead, get more ahead. Look at the range, man. I can't zoom out one more. Can almost not zoom out far enough to see the entire distance there of the Tempest shots. And I kind of feel like Stats is in a really dire scenario here. He doesn't have a way to deal with those Tempests. Unless he miraculously manages to get those Stalkers underneath. Unless the Disruptors all blow up to like a defensive Disruptor. I don't really see ShoWTimE giving away a lead like this. We see a big Zealot Warp in right now as well, which is fine and dandy, but... he's still trying. Stats trying to get those magical connections. If he can blow up all of those Disruptors, right, with one of his Disruptor hits, that would be a game changer. Once again, though, Tempest, or ShoWTimE rather, recognizes the scenario. He's like, you know what? I don't need to do this. Why would I try and take a risk? He's maxed out. I know he doesn't have a lot of economy. I can just simply secure more economy myself, max out with an even stronger army, add even more Tempest into the mix. And this is, yeah, this is so much. You know what I would have loved to see as well? Is just mix in, like, a couple of the armor upgrades. I think that would have been pretty cool for these carriers, or for these Tempests. I guess they're mostly just losing their shields, so it's not a massive deal. But still, if you have that cybernetics core right now, I think adding on some air armor upgrades as well seems like a good idea. Still not a lot of damage though. Stats did manage to squeeze out a mothership once again, but yeah, it's too much. It's too much. So at some point, ShoWTimE reached critical mass, right? And he managed to start one-shotting all of those carriers, and he never really lost the Tempests after that. He lost a couple of Tempests here and there, but he replaced them with more Tempest once more. And at that point, he just had critical mass to one-shot whatever came out of that Stargate there for Stats. So even though I like the idea of Stats adding on more and more carriers there, it allowed him to shut down that economy because, well, ShoWTimE had to fight at a distance, so he couldn't really defend his bases very well. I'm pretty sure he just didn't switch to those Tempests fast enough. He had a big economy lead. He tried to close the distance right there a little bit too soon, but ShoWTimE, the Mauer, managed to defend the push. And after that, the Tempest just simply reigned supreme. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notifications as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your generosity. Have a look at my Patreon page if you're interested in the different perks that you get for being a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/LowkoTV. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you once again in the next one.